Welcome to the third edition of Dubai Future Horizons, the brand new networking series for futurists, foresight professionals, and researchers, presented by Dubai Future Foundation, produced by Remote Daily, coming fresh from the Dubai Future Forum and COP28. We're continuing here in the virtual realm with you. My name is Felix. I'm the founder of Remote Daily. I have the honor to host you today live from a New York City rainstorm. It's really gray and dark out there. I hope where you are, it's a little bit brighter right now. I hope you feel well in your respective spaces. My colleague Liz, who is producing the session, was just asking you in the chat, who are you? Where are you joining us from? Let us know. We already had people responding from Hamburg, Germany, from New York City, from India, from Paris, from Brazil, wow, from France, from Pakistan. Hi, always thank you for staying awake for us, and of course from Canada, from Finland, amazing, Switzerland, and from Morocco, based in Lisbon. Wow, thank you for taking the time for being here. It's really exciting to spend this hour with you. What is happening here on Horizons? Well, the first half of the hour, we share some takeaways from the Biofuture Forum and COP, and we discuss how can nature be at the center of foresight. And then the second half of the hour, we turn the room over to you to connect in breakout rooms. So we hope that you leave after this hour with new learnings, with new friends from around the world. And to kick us off today, I have the huge honor to welcome a policy specialist who has been working with the European Union for a decade, most recently as a diplomat to the EU delegation to Singapore, where she was in charge of sustainability, climate policy, COP negotiations, foresight, among many other things, and is now part of the research and imagination team, what a cool title, at Dubai Future Foundation, where she focuses on the future of food and other areas of sustainability. So glad she's joining us today. Isabella Pirolo, live from Italy. Welcome to Horizons, Isabella. It's good to have you.
Hi, Felix, and it's good to be here. Hello to everybody.
You see, Isabella, Lisbon is here, Calgary, Chicago, London, Canada, so many folks. And, you know, what I experienced at Dubai Future Forum was that the nature-centric sessions, the sessions that touch on what we're discussing today, they were overrun. I attended one on future ancestors. There wasn't even standing room anymore. There was just no room at all. So as a co-organizer of the forum, kudos for bringing nature-centric sessions to the stage. But what did you learn from that? What did you learn from this massive interest in nature-centric foresight, Isabella?
Thanks, Felix. Thanks for the question. And, I'm going to borrow the words from a colleague of mine. And last week, she was saying that when you do foresight, you need a Northern Star. And I think this is what we learned as the Dubai Future Foundation, is that nature is becoming the Northern Star, not only the participants who were there, but also the one who could not attend. And we see it a lot also in the questions that we're getting now on social media. And everybody talked about nature, even the technologists on main stage who were going to talk about artificial intelligence and so on and so forth. Ultimately, they were discussing about ecosystem and nature and transition. And I think we were not completely expecting that. So that came partially as a surprise. But then, of course, COP was coming up. So let's say a surprise, but also we could imagine that. And for me, another very telling moment, personally, but I think also for the Dubai Future Foundation in general, was the tasting of the future of food. It was a first for Dubai, for the forum. We managed to bring the food of the future, namely cultivated meat, that is lab-grown meat, precision fermented egg and cheese, and cultivated chocolate. So we found this was a way of translating foresight into practice.
Wow. Nature as a Northern Star for a whole event. And we, of course, want to know from all of you who had the chance to either attend Dubai Future Forum or check out the live stream, what was your most unexpected, surprising takeaway? What was your moment when you thought, I never thought that was going to happen at this event. I never thought I would learn this. Please let us know in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. I know there's at least a few people in the room here who were in person in Dubai, and I'm sure there's many here who followed the live stream. So that year, what I learned is it was the second edition only. It already doubled in size, 2,500 plus attendees from over 100 countries. And this is what my surprise was walking the hallways. It felt like the United Nations of Foresight. I met people from Tasmania, from Vanuatu, from Colombia, from Sierra Leone, from Pakistan, all places I would never have the chance to go. And out of a sudden, I had the chance to connect. Diversity was amazing. The energy was amazing. And while everybody is starting, hopefully soon, to share experiences they had in the chat from the forum, the next forum has already been announced. Isabella, November 19th to 20th in 2024. So we marked that on the calendar. It just got announced. So Isabella, as a second question to you before we welcome the other panelists, how are you going to put the topic of our session today, nature-centric foresight, how are you going to put that even more at the center of the Forum 2024?
And well, just wanted to say that indeed it was an amazing experience, so much energy, and we're still energized. This is why we're already discussing about next year's agenda with a lot of enthusiasm, because we hope that next year the same amount of people will turn up and we will have fantastic engagement. So when it comes to nature, every forum edition does not exist in isolation. So next year edition, in the end, will elaborate on the discussions that we've seen taking place this year, and also throughout the conversation that we will have during the year with colleagues who we met at the forum, but also new colleagues. And I'm sure that nature will be prominent, because this is where we see the interest is lying right now. And also, where we look at our latest work when it comes to the research, what we're doing, on the occasion of the forum, we published the COP28 special edition of the Global 50 Opportunities Report. So I'm not going to spoil anything about its content, but I just would like to suggest it as a recommended reading for all of you here, and also with your friends, if you have some time. It's a great read.
And thank you for that promise, Isabella, to move nature even more to the center of the event. Shaki just shared in the chat, new words is my big learning. New words that help distinguish from just strategic foresight or a type of it to transformative foresight and performative foresight. Thank you for sharing that, Shaki, and I can very much relate with that. What Isabella just mentioned, this huge report that is also has a lot of nature-centric foresight in it, called Global 50. We're going to share that in the chat with you in just a second, together with all the forum sessions that you can revisit on the YouTube channel. And now let's welcome our panel of today. Isabella, thank you. We will see you again in a few minutes. I would like to say first hello to a PhD candidate of Helsinki, fellow at the Next Generation Foresight Practitioners Network. Shout out to you guys, NGFP. Biodesigner in Myohackers, My Co-Hackers, a Berlin-based microfabrication collective, and a research fellow in Natura, which is a nature-based solutions network for urban resilience, which we're going to talk about with her today. She's currently working on an amazing project to endarken cities. Welcome, Melissa Ingaruca Moreno. Melissa, it's such an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you, Felix. Excited to share with the panel.
Thank you, Melissa. And Manish just put it in the chat. What if nature had a voice in the boardroom of every company? Maybe you all saw that Apple ad with Mother Nature joining the boardroom. Thank you for sharing, Manish. And this is how we keep the questions and comments coming to you, Melissa, and to your fellow regenerative futurists. And next, I would like to say hi to an award-winning environmental activist and architect, founder of the Adib Dada Regenerative Consultancy and Architecture Practice, in short, TOD, with a mission to activate projects across architecture, living systems, and art. And together with his team, he planted over 11 forests across Lebanon, where he's from, reclaiming more than 3,700 square meters of degraded land by planting them with over 10,500 trees and shrubs of 28 different native species. It's important to put these numbers out. This is real work. A deep story has been produced into Growing Back by Root, a short documentary about his environmental advocacy and forest making work that I highly recommend to check out. Welcome, Adib Dada. Welcome, Adib, to the show. It's so good to have you with us today.
Thank you, Felix, and excited to share the stage again with Melissa, as we did in Dubai.
Yes, man, and your session was another one that was completely packed. Standing room was scarce, and I highly recommend to check out listening to it on the YouTube channel. And finally, I would like to say welcome to the regenerative futurist and founder of Aloha's Foundation, who co-wrote the UN SDG manifesto, is working with the UNFCCC and many other intergovernmental bodies on the next set of goals that come after the SDGs. He takes a systems view of life and addresses all facets of complex systems in order to solve our global challenges, has been involved in climate and environmentalism for a long time, coming from a family involved in agriculture for generations. And he was one of the first people to be trained by Al Gore as a climate speaker and has made that his life's work, getting through the climate crisis towards regenerative, desirable futures. Just returned from COP28. Welcome, Marc Buckley, joining us live from Hamburg. So good to have you with us, Marc.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. A lot of great people in the room. I see a lot of good comments already. Excited.
To be honest with you, today's topic gave me sleepless nights. How can nature be at the center of foresight is pointing at some of the biggest transformations of our era. And it gave me a very hard job to break this down into 20 plus minutes with guests that each and every single one deserves a whole series of conversations. What we did as a trick, we asked the question to you when you signed up. And some of your answers, Liz is now going to share in the chat. We're very grateful that you took the time to respond. There were some beautiful responses here and some calls to action from Lana, from Joe, from Salman, from Sarah, George, Nicholas. And we want to thank you for your contributions. Please keep them coming. And the only thing we can offer today is an introduction to different approaches than your own that hopefully inspire you and help you going forward. Marc, I'm going to start with you because you're the one among our guests today who attended both Dubai Future Forum and COP28 in its entirety from day one to the last. You're deeply involved in both. I learned that you come from generations in agriculture in your family, which put you on the path to where you are today, a regenerative futurist, a climate speaker, a co-author of so many manifestos that have made sustainability famous, fortunately, in the last couple of years. You're basically an OG of nature-centric foresight. And Marc, let me ask you first, a lot of the coverage about COP28 was hinging on the negative, on the cynical, and reactions often are like that. You have seen that many, many years in the making that people react like that. So I wanted to ask you first, what do you take from COP28, Marc, that makes you hopeful?
Thank you very much. So yeah, I come from 6 generations, Germany's largest organic farmers. I'm a permaculture designer. I do regenerative ag, and the question fits so nicely. So the COP was probably the most controversial we've had. You know, the president of a COP of oil and gas company, and there is no better place to be than right in the heart of all that controversy with the lobbyists, with the good and the bad. Just like in farming, you need a little bit of shit or manure or bullshit to make a good compost. And literally, that's what happened at COP. There was a lot of bullshit, a lot of lobbyists. It was right in the heart of controversy. And guess what? The world did it. They came together. It wasn't the most ambitious. It wasn't the best ever. But they finally got the wording in there deeply on food and ag, and a little bit in the right direction on fossil fuels. And so we did it. Now, a lot of people have asked me, does it have bite? Let's put it this way. It has baby teeth, and hopefully those teeth will fall out and we'll get some adult teeth with real bite, and that stinky manure will develop into sweet smelling compost. If you've ever had a handful of compost, it doesn't stink. There's not a lot of flies around. It smells woodsy and chocolatey, and it's wonderful. And I think that's really what's going to happen with the COP and what happened. We went in overtime at the last minute. We thought there is no wording. A lot of people were going to walk away, and we pulled it off. And so I'm pretty excited about what happened. And through all of the controversy, that was the big discussion. So.
Wow, thank you, Marc. And not only for the analogy, many here in the chat just applauded your analogy here, but also for a reminder that in order to change things, you have to engage. And it's easy to sit on the sideline and say, it's not working out. It's much harder to actually go there like you do every year and try to engage. When I ask you, Marc, what you're curious to hear about from everyone in the room today, because we have an amazing crowd of experts, a community that took the time to be here, you gave me a very big question. You told me you have been asking this question around the world for years. You never heard the same answer twice. And we're now going to put this question forward to all of you in the chat, because you are amazing. You all know, and you all have an opinion on this. So Liz is going to put the question in the chat. The question is, what does a world that works for everyone look like for you? Respond with a sentence, not a word. We're very excited to hear across the next few minutes, because this is one to think about, Marc, what you all think. And as a regenerative futurist, Marc, why do you ask this question? Why do you want to know?
Well, it's not a new question. It's been in the international organizations for over 70 years. It comes from a man who is also a futurist, a polymath by the name of R. Buckminster Fuller. He was an architect, a designer, a polymath, a real futurist. And he designed the geodesic domes, a new world map as well, and kind of many wonderful things. And he did it in a similar place to COP28 Dubai, the Expo City. 1967, the World's Expo in Montreal, Canada, he built a geodesic dome, and in that dome he played what was called the world game. And he asked people from all over the world to come together and answer this question: what does a world that works for everyone look like for them? So all these different countries, cultures, and people would come together in Montreal, Canada, the World's Fair, and they would try to answer that. What does a world that works for everyone look like for them? And they played this game called the world game. And so I, about 7 years ago, went around on videotape, filming people asking that question. And I really, to be honest, I thought that after about a couple hundred, I could make a nice compilation video, and then I'd have this big aha moment where everybody, you know, I'd come to this great realization, and I'd have a cool video to show everybody with the answers, and we would go forward into utopia or into these regenerative futures. And I was very surprised. I put about 3,500 plus people on video, and guess what? Only 7 people came to very close to a similar answer. And the rest of them, I thought they were going to have a grand mal seizure. They started stuttering, they started sweating. And if I asked them the same question twice in the same day, it was always different. If I asked them over months, that's why I recorded it, the answer was always different. And it was really funny that some people called me up and said, hey, can I give you my answer again? I thought about it, I haven't, and it was still different. And it was still not, you know, anywhere close to what Buckminster Fuller had. And so that's really the experiment I did. And if you want to get to the future, if you want to live in a better world, and you don't know the answer to that question, then that's going to be kind of hard. Now, it's okay if you don't know the answer to that question, but I promise you that if you don't, someone in your religion, your government, your city, your parents, your spouse, someone has jumped into that position in your life, and they're guiding you on the future that they think is right. And I've looked all around the world, and there's really no one guiding me or having a plan of a future that I really say, wow, that's the future I want to live in. And that's also why I work on the resilient development goals, the sustainable development goals, to try to set those futures for that would work for everyone.
Thank you, Marc. Thank you for sharing your why. And this question has already been answered in the chat by many of you. Isabella kicked us off: a web of cooperation and compassion a world that's kind of to nature. Imagine, says Rashad, John Lennon got it right a long time ago. A rainbow of communities is what Wendy says. What a beautiful image. And Neil is pointing towards something that many of you have shared before the session while signing up. The notion that nature is separate from us. An optional thing to consider is a delusion. And this brings me to Adib. Adib, you had a very different COP28 because you were just working in one place on a new, one-of-a-kind new project of yours that was revealed in Dubai just a few days ago during COP called Tarabot, a living forum, a shared space between humans and other species, just like Neil put in the chat, right? This separation is gone in your work. And it includes clay, mycelium, date palm waste. So what Marc talked about as compost, upcycled fabric, and Liz is going to screen share with everyone. So get ready for the visual impression here of what Adib has been building. Liz is going to take you on this journey. And Adib, you also told us that after deconstructing this, which you see on the next slide, this will be repurposed for domestic planting on land. So the structure will be taking on new life as an underwater habitat for coral, for fish, linking life to land, to life underwater. And it's such an amazing thing that you have been able to create, Adib. So I was wondering, coming back to the topic of today's session, ever since planning this, since day one, when going through envisioning this, then building this as a futuristic home, how did you make sure, Adib, that not us humans are at the center of this all the time, but nature is? What is the framework that you rely on when doing something like this on a daily basis?
Thanks, Felix. I mean, for me, nature has always been a point of reference and a refuge. I grew up in Beirut during the Civil War. My school was located in a forest. I used to spend my recess time in the forest. And, just kind of experimenting and climbing and doing so many things that, kids used to do. And that's something that's disappeared from our daily lives. And that's really a shame. For this project, for the past, so I studied, I studied architecture, and I was very much interested in, in green buildings, and then, learning about sustainability. But I always kind of trying to push the boundary further. And I stumbled onto biomimicry, and there, that's where kind of my, that was back in 2011. And immediately jumped on, taking on a course on biomimicry. I was part of the second class ever of kind of biomimics, kind of getting formally trained. So that was something that really I felt would be, and has become the basis of all of my work. It's something that underpins my work without necessarily having to consciously think about it. But this idea that Janine Benyus, so one of the co-founders of biomimicry, the way that she puts it is, what if we were to quiet our human cleverness? So we consider ourselves humans like the smartest species on the planet, but that's not actually true. We are one of the youngest species, and life has appeared about, almost 4 billion years ago on this planet, and it has evolved so many organisms that have had to deal with much harder challenges than what we are facing right now. So what if we were to look to them to actually learn from them and emulate that, and really learning from our very kind of hyper-localized ecosystems and environments. So we don't want to import anymore any ready-made solutions, but we really want to understand, place, understand what's missing from that place, who's missing from that place, and then catering the built environment towards this. So for me, it's about working with and for the human and the more than human. So the pavilion itself, as you said, is made up from many different materials that are co-created with life, such as mycelium that is feeding on waste. So we developed this with a local company called Mycosphere. And so this mycelium is feeding on waste that we've collected from the site. The material you can see here that looks like wood is actually called desert board, and it comes from the waste stream of the date palm industry, which is really big in the UAE and in the region. So repurposing that diverting it from landfill or from being burned, and actually making up a really technical, high-quality architectural product out of it. Then using native plant species to attract the birds and the insects and building up the complexity of life. So lots of many different elements there. Also here in this picture, you can see providing shade is such an underrated action, but it's actually really important for life to be able to thrive.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I recommend to all of you, we put the links in the chat to find out more about Tarabot. And we also want to know, Adib, what you want to learn about, of course. You told me preparing for the session that where you operate every day in Lebanon, it's a failed state. You are in constant uncertainty outside of many operating systems that other people have access to. You cannot rely on technology for things to work every day. Still, many future visions that we see today visualized are the opposite. They're very tech-centric. They don't include animals or plants. So given this is a room filled with futurists, and you could ask anybody here pretty much anything, and it will help you. Adib, what is the kind of foresight work that you as an architect are most interested in, most eager to learn about?
Yeah, so like we said the other day, I mean, I'm working both in terms of like building sort of immediate or short-term habitat, whether for humans or other organisms, but we're also doing, like, through planting these urban forests, we're really rethinking the future of cities and building homes or habitat for other species that are gonna outlive us all. So we're thinking on a time frame of like 300 years for a forest to reach maturity. So how do we kind of reconcile that with with the cities of today, and how can we really think of this sort of long-term futurism? So we look at the immediate. We're also working a lot on in the educational sector, working with kids and the new generation. So working across generations, but really up to the time frame of an actual forest and not just of our human existence.
Amazing. So if anybody of you has any insights or framework for long-term futurism, Adib, I think you said 300 years, that is long-term futurism, please share them in the chat. Please help Adib to find out. Maybe you can offer yourself a connecting call, an introductory call. If you're working on something like that, maybe you have a framework, a resource, please let us know. This community is amazing and rich. And now let's go dark with Melissa. You just created an experience, Melissa, that I found so fascinating around nature-centric futures of cities' nightscapes by taking people in Berlin, where you live at the moment, on a bioluminescent journey. So Liz is going to share on the screen right now with us a bit of how this works. You really empower folks to realize the impact of light pollution by putting them into darkness and make them embrace it, and then bring organisms in that can give light. So Melissa, thank you so much for doing what you do and with creating your future thinking experience like this one. You clearly already have nature at the center of it. You take humans like us, you take us out of our comfort zone into the dark, and you help us see light in a completely different way. What is the model? What is the framework that you're using for that?
Thank you, Felix. So I think I'm going to borrow what Marc said with decomposing, because it really made me think about one of the first pillars that was behind the work of Foresight and behind Darken. And that is that I think most of us here in this room acknowledge that we have a crisis of meaning, right? That we can no longer use the same mindsets to inform the future. And these mindsets, like the part that I focus on, is in spotting the anthropocentric design that is behind modern cities, right? And so for me, the first pillar is that we need, as Foresight practitioners, we need to decompose these old imaginaries, right? We need to be able to regenerate from that and connect all of these seeds of radical thinking that are out there. So one of these approaches, which has also many names, is multi-species thinking, but you hear it in different forms: regenerative thinking, more than human thinking. And it shares a lot of commonalities with other narratives of biomimicry, biophilic design, and so on. And we can already see that these are narratives that are evolving also as our awareness is within Western culture, at least. And so that's the first pillar, to identify what were these root ideas behind the way that we relate with light and darkness in cities. And so I think it's also pretty intuitive to everyone that the story of modern cities is basically this story of the triumph of light, right? So we have pushed artificial light as much as we can. And in that sense, we have ended up now with these light polluted world cities across the world, even losing sight of the stars. And so then what I wanted to do with this is to rewire this understanding that we have of light and darkness, but not to say now, okay, now we need to undarken cities, because now, just like in a bit of parenthesis, what we need to do to design for more than human needs in Nightscapes is to recognize that they need darker conditions. So that's kind of the starting point. But like you could do quickly saying, oh yeah, so sure, we could just switch to red light, which is a bit more nature friendly. That would be just a quick way to already go into a future scenario, right? But rewiring the relationship with darkness actually means to understand that we have put light above darkness, and we have created this dualism as well, where we have really a spectrum of things. So you can think, for example, just as how we understand light. Light is not just visible light, what humans see. Light is like the spectrum, right? And so there are many species that relate differently to that spectrum of light. That already gives you the idea of that's a spectrum. And also the fact that it's not just about stopping light pollution or trying to decrease it, but actually about finding ways to thrive together with other species in darkness. So also this idea to change from the fear to darkness to the sense of awe and wonderment. And this, I think, was also the reason why we looked to create these alliances with different, in this case, what you're seeing in the pictures, with bioluminescent fungi, with fluorescent fungi. So this one right now is a fluorescent fungi, and the other one has like the green light. That's the bioluminescent fungi, right? So it was about finding these designerly alliances to imagine new ways of living. So one of the rooms, I think it was the first one where you have the green lanterns, if you can put it back, that's the recreation. That was already the experiential scenario, right? So that was the idea of having dark healing centers in the city. So that was the idea where people go to these centers to reconnect with darkness and to heal and retune their eyes to be able to see a starry sky, and of course bioluminescence, because basically you need a darker condition, you need darkness to see bioluminescence, right? And then there were the other pictures, which is like the purple one. Yeah, so this one was a recreation of it was called a dark fashion co-op, as a cooperative. And the idea there is that instead of creating this super big infrastructure of light, that we could create wearable light, and not just having some faraway company doing it, but actually it was about a communal practice, the idea of communal biolabs. And this was a do-it-yourself wearable light workshop, the performance of one. And people were, in this narrative, they were learning to weave together, also like quite visual, making reference to the mycelium, right? To weave together these textiles, which were inspired in one fluorescent fungi, that is the other picture. And the last one, just to mention that, which is the red one, the red pictures. Yes, that one. I don't know if there's a wood in there somewhere, or maybe not.
Oh, the wooden, yeah.
Okay.
I have to jump in, Melissa, just because, but for the reasons of time. But I want to thank you for giving us this glimpse into the journey that you are on. And Manish just posted in the chat, I find this session to be far more uplifting than the media coverage of COP28. You are doing amazing work, all of you. And to give a glimpse into that work to this room full of futurists, foresight professionals, architects, artists, people that care about a nature-centric future is a real delight. We're about to close the session today. We're going a few minutes over time because we still have our amazing guests in the room. So if you don't have an adjacent meeting right now, in whatever time zone you're in, we want you to share signals with one another. And for this last step, I would ask all our guests to come back on the stage. Isabella, Adib, Marc, and Melissa, please join us here. This is a collective exercise for the community and for all our guests together. Links what are signals? Links to books. You all know this. You're futurists, but I'm going to say it. Links to books, podcasts, studies, movies, feeds, posts that you recently came across that have to do with our topic of today, nature-centric forecasting, and that you think is relevant. I want that you say, I need to share this. So I'm going to ask our guests of today to start sharing. And I hope that you all can, Isabella, please join us on the stage as well. I hope that you all can share in the chat at the same time. Isabella, I'm going to ask you to kick us off. Thank you for making time for Horizons. What is your signal? What would you like to leave us with today?
Thank you, Felix. Something that I'm observing a lot and I'm very passionate about is the convergence between tech and climate policy. That what does is pushing us. It is pushing actually our borders of exploration. So it's not only deep space, but it's deep ocean, deep forest. So how far are we going into exploration? This is something, my signal.
Fantastic. And we found a link to that signal from the BBC. And Kenneth was just asking, can the resources be saved and shared? Yes, of course. We are inviting you to our WhatsApp group where we will open a signals channel. We will post all the signals of today there and then invite you all to react, to share, and to post your own. Thank you, Isabella, for taking us into deep space, deep oceans, deep forests. I think this is what our session did today. We went everywhere. Now, Marc, what is your signal? What would you like to leave us with today, Marc?
Well, truly, it's circling back towards sustainable development. But I shared in the comments in the chats this nice Terrence Howard video where he did a longer lecture. It really resonates with me. Frequencies, understanding of math and the universe, and I think there's a lot of hidden things that talk about the development of humanity. Most people. Even in the United Nations, and there were several people in the breakout sessions that said they were also at the COP, don't know what sustainable development is. There's 100 different answers in the UN, and that's sad because if we don't know, we're not ever going to get there. So I've been trying to educate people as much as possible since 2015. It's real simple. Sustainable development is development of the built environment. It's infrastructure. It's how humanity will evolve into the future. It's how we live in the future. And current development is an economy. It's an economy of $89 trillion to do business as usual, the high carbon scenario. So what is sustainable development? It's an ecological economy. And it costs $94 trillion, and it'll be the way our world will develop into the future, into much more sustainable living situations and infrastructure. Is it the end? No. In 2030, it won't end. We'll have another set of goals and develop hopefully into regeneration and resilience and things like that beyond. So that's my main signal that I would like people to really understand and grasp. Has to do with the future of your life and how you live.
Thank you, Marc. Sustainable development as an economy and one of transition into another. We shared in the chat all the takeaways from Marc from COP28, innovatorsmac.com /category/COP28. This is all the stories that Marc brought us from COP28. Thank you, Marc. And Melissa, what is your signal? What would you like to leave us with today? Oh, sorry, your mic's still off, Melissa. There you go.
And I was going to say, I'm going to drop in the chat now an example of fungal architecture. So basically architectures are about working with mycelium. But that one example I like because it's also working with a species that is bioremediating the soil. So just because we have a lot of polluted soil in cities. And it's also a bit bringing tech. So it's 3D printing oil with the substrate of the mycelium. Mycelium grows into the soil, also above, creates architectures and restores the soil. So I'll drop that. And then I have another signal just quickly saying that this is about the field of sensory ecology and how we need to understand how the cognition and also sensorial worlds of other species are, so that we can bring that into our knowledge systems. So there's a tech talk, something like what if an orca could give a tech talk? That's the title, a bit catchy. So I'll drop those two.
What if an orca could give a TED Talk? That's amazing. And we have so many recommendations from all of you here, from Entangled Life to Discovered World, How Soon Is Now. These are all books, of course. The Emerging BioAge report has been shared, a framework by next-gen social innovator and biomimicry specialist from a systems change perspective. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We will all copy and paste them in our new WhatsApp group so you can delve into these afterwards. And Adib, let's finalize the signals with you. What is your signal that you would like to share with us today, Adib? And your mic's also to be switched on. Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to pin down to one thing in specific, but it's really this, and a lot of people, like I saw that in the chat, maybe we didn't have enough time to tackle this. But obviously when we're talking, like humans and nature are one and the same. And for me, that's part of like how we rethink this is that, we understand that we are nature and people understand that we are nature. And so that's already a kind of step one. And this is what will help us kind of move away from sustainability into interdependence, understanding the interdependence between all species, the human, the more than human, but also into regeneration. So we all have the ability to be, healers of the planet. The built environment has the ability to be a catalyst for healing degraded lands in the city. And kind of just moving away from just, okay, you know what, let's try to do this a little bit better and this a little better, but kind of this reframing to something that is positive. What is the positive impact that we can be making? So we again, we're not living in this mindset of scarcity anymore, but there is abundance. And so let's just kind of make the most use out of it.
Wow. And Adib, you also were so kind to share some resources with us beforehand. AskNature.org, Biomimicry.org, and the Living Futures Challenge. We put all of them in the chat as well. We'll also share them in our new Signals chat that we're about to open on WhatsApp. I knew this session was going to be impossible, but we did it. And we only went 10 minutes over time. Thank you for giving us a glimpse, all of your amazing guests and this amazing community, into how nature can be at the center of Foresight. Thank you for reflecting on these great events that just happened in Dubai that brought many of us together. And thank you for being here. Thank you for creating a brand new community. We hope to create a series every month that leads up to Future Forum, and as we do today, continue afterwards. I'm very glad you're all here. And before our final piece of music is already fading in, before we all leave the Zoom call, I'm just going to say we as the Remote Daily team are really proud to create Dubai Future Horizons with Dubai Future Foundation, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon. And please, to say goodbye while DJ Hourglass is fading in her final piece of music for you, let's all go off mute together. In whatever language you prefer, I would love to hear you say goodbye one last time in my language. My first one, it's Auf Wiedersehen. Thank you. This was Dubai Future Horizons. Love to hear from you all.
Ciao.
شكرا، مع السلامة.
Presto.
Bye.